To breaking news, and Hamas says it will release an Israeli-American hostage potentially as early as tomorrow as part of efforts to secure a new ceasefire in Gaza. Middle East correspondent Matthew Doran is live in Jerusalem. Matthew, what do we know about this announcement from Hamas?
Bridget, good morning. The leader of Hamas in Gaza has made this announcement on social media within the last hour or so and has said that the group is prepared to release 21-year-old American-Israeli hostage Edan Alexander, and that could happen as early as Tuesday. Now, this is significant for a number of reasons. First of all, it is significant because there has been very little movement between Hamas and Israel when it comes to negotiating a ceasefire and a further hostage deal. There are 59 Israeli hostages still held by Hamas in Gaza, 21 of them believed to be alive. There are grave fears for another 3 in that group there. It is also significant because in the last couple of weeks or so, Hamas had been making some comments about Edan Alexander, saying that at one stage it had lost contact with the guards who were looking after him or guarding him in Gaza while Israel continued its bombardment of the Strip there. So the fact that they are now saying that he will be released as early as Tuesday is showing that he is alive there. There has been really a stalemate between Israel and Hamas over the last couple of weeks as they've been trying to negotiate a ceasefire and hostage deal. At various points throughout those negotiations, Hamas has said it would be prepared to release all of the remaining hostages that it has in Gaza in exchange for Israel ending the war there. Israel has repeatedly demanded that Hamas needs to lay down its weapons as part of any deal, something which the militant group is not in favour of. It says it is a red line in those negotiations because, as it sees it, that would give Israel a green light to exercise its own territorial ambitions within Gaza, something which we are already seeing as a result of Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, announcing last week that Israel would be intensifying its military operations in Gaza, leading to the total and potentially indefinite occupation of the Strip there. So this is something which is very significant, and we have heard in the last couple of moments or so from Benjamin Netanyahu's office. He says that this has been an approach or a gesture by Hamas made directly to the United States, that it is unconditional. In other words, Edan Alexander would be released without there needing to be any Palestinian prisoners released by Israelis, for that as an example there, and that as far as it's concerned, Israel will continue to negotiate with Hamas, but to do so under fire. In other words, it won't be halting its bombardment of the Strip as those negotiations continue.
And Matt, what about the timing of this announcement from Hamas? What can we read into that?
Well, the US President Donald Trump is due to arrive in the Middle East for his first major overseas trip since returning to office on Tuesday, the very same day that we are now expecting Edan Alexander to be released. He is not prepared or not scheduled at this stage to be making any trip to Israel, but Donald Trump is focusing his intent and his attention in Saudi Arabia, in the UAE and in Qatar. The war, though, in Gaza is certainly casting a long shadow over his trip, and there had been some speculation that he would use his time in the Middle East to present a new ceasefire and hostage proposal there. So this is clearly a gesture from Hamas directed at the United States, the timing of which is coinciding with Donald Trump arriving in this area. And regardless of that and how this then plays out over the next couple of days, the Netanyahu government will be keeping a very close eye on what Donald Trump does and says in this region while he is visiting. There have been a number of differences appearing between the two countries in the last couple of weeks, differences over the handling of Iran and its nuclear ambitions, the Houthi rebels in Yemen. So that will clearly take up a lot of the attention from Israel as this hostage release is slated to occur.